So Joe Rogan obviously has a huge audience. He's actually an individual who has one of the biggest audiences in the world right now. And I think it's important every once in a while, if you don't listen to him, some of you may, to take a look at what he says. Not because it's the most profound thing in the world or what Joe Rogan says is the most important thing or whoever he's interviewing is saying the most important thing. I think it's important to listen to Joe Rogan because he's basically like the middle of the ground, average, everyday individual, right? He's got some liberal thoughts, he's got some conservative thoughts, but he kind of just shoots the breeze, shares what he thinks, and many times I think he does it in a good way where it's very understandable and relatable to the average person. So it gives you an idea when the media is coming out and telling you, this is what everyone's thinking, this is what the polls are saying, this is what people believe. When you listen to Joe Rogan or you see his interviews, you begin to say, well, actually, no, I think a lot of people are thinking this. So Joe Rogan on this clip is going to be specifically speaking about the illegal immigration issue that is happening in the United States right now. And I think he does a good job bringing light to the problem that many average day Americans have on this and some of the thoughts on why our government is allowing this to happen. Check it out.
When you watch those migrants jump those cops and beat their ass, and then they got out of jail with no bail right away.
That's trouble.
That is wild.
I know, but it depends what your algorithm is.
And they're Tupac-ing the camera.
Yeah.
They Tupac the camera on the way out. Yes.
I didn't see this.
Yes. Apparently those guys have fled.
And they got released or deported?
They got released.
Oh, they're just back out. Dude.
Yeah, bro, they interviewed this one guy. I was watching this YouTube video, what's happening in these hotels. This one guy's been there for 7 months, and he said they give him a nice hotel. It's a nice room. He said it's real clean. They give him breakfast, lunch, and dinner every day, and he's an illegal immigrant.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are poor. They're like, hey, what about my family? What about me? What about us Americans that live here, have always been here, born and raised here? And people just sneak in, and you're giving them all these things you won't give us. Why are you doing this? This is crazy. That's crazy.
Is it like a vote? Are they trying to like get new voters or something?
I would imagine yes.
Yeah, but they're not going to be down with it. If you ever meet like a dude from Guatemala?
They're doing it right now in New York City. In New York City, they're allowing illegal immigrants to vote.
Yeah.
This is something they just... Is that true? Is that absolutely true? Let's make sure, because this is a big statement. But I'm pretty sure that was one of the things that they were trying to do. They were trying to make it so that these people could be documented. And this is what they keep saying. The way to deal with the undocumented people is find a pathway for them to be documented. Sure, that's how we've always done it. It's legal immigration. Now, you might think legal immigration is too restrictive. Okay. But you can't just let anybody in because terrorists are a real thing. This is not like an imaginary, it's not like orcs. Like, we know terrorists are real. Yeah. And they already caught that one guy where they asked the guy, like, who are you? He goes, you will know soon enough. And then they find out, okay, this guy's on a terrorist watch list and made it into America.
What a dumbass.
Yay.
Yeah. They're not going to vote left, though. These people coming from, like, South America and stuff are going to, like,
a lot of
read
them
the
will
issues.
because those are the people that got them in. Those are the people that are giving them money. Those are the people that are giving them free food, free place to sleep. Wouldn't you vote for those people? Especially all you want to do is get a fucking job. And if you vote for these people and these people are going to allow you to be documented, you're going to be able to get a job and then continue to get social assistance, which has been pretty remarkable. Yeah. You're getting money and food and a place to live. Why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah, but then they'll work and they'll get on their own 2 feet, and then they're super, like, they're pretty conservative.
That's when it's time to close the border. Once you get established, you go, no one else.
Well, they don't in California. You know, in California, that was what changed California. California, when Reagan was in office, Reagan created a pathway for illegal immigrants to become legal and vote. And when he did that, the Republicans never won California again, except for Schwarzenegger.
You know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about like how like the left has turned to kind of like war hawks?
Yeah.
The right has kind of turned to like your statement there about like why don't we help Americans?
Yeah.
It's like now all of a sudden the right's like pro welfare.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like we should be helping our people.
I know.
You know? It's just everything's kind of...
Well, people are waking up on both sides. But there's a lot of people that are left-wing people that are like, what the fuck is going on with all these wars? Like, what are we doing? Like, this is not something that we were supposed to be about. And, you know, there's a lot of people on the left that look at what's going on in Gaza right now and they're freaking out.
Yeah.
So then there's that turmoil on the left.
Give me a beer. I'd like to talk about Gaza. I like that. That's
a quagmire. The Gaza's a quagmire for the left. Of course. They're like...
It's funny that America's like, what are we doing in all these wars? It's like, bro, do you know who we are?
Yeah, that's what we do.
It's all we've ever done.
Yeah.
Start to finish.
Yeah,
It's true.
Day one.
that's how you
Let's
make a
go.
place like this.
Here's
Yeah.
the thing I can find. This is not from this year. This is from 2022, but this is the only thing I could find.
Yeah, Eric Adams. That's it.
This has to do with local elections, first of all.
Right.
And then people with green cards and the DACA, anyone that's a DACA, which is the Dreamers, people.
Dreamers, people who are born here, right? Parents were brought into this country illegal as children. That's it. Not born here, rather.
Dreamers is
so they're
nice.
allowed to remain. Yeah,
Does
no,
sound-
it's great.
Does sound nice.
That's all great. But they are allowing people that are not legal residents or that are not legal citizens to vote, right?
In New York elections.
Yeah. So that's all you need to know. So that's
Yeah.
the beginning. So that's how you win the election over and over and over.
In
Yeah.
the short term,
That's
yeah.
how you control local elections in New York.
Yeah, true.
I mean, it's a foolproof playbook. You give people like way better
You pay 'em.
treatment than you give the people you. That's
Yeah.
the same thing Osho did in Wild Wild Country. They bust in all those homeless people and let them vote. Remember?
So I really like this back and forth banter they have on this particular issue a lot. Is this the most intelligent discussion on this issue at hand? No. Are they missing a lot here? Are they over extrapolating on some things and not hitting on certain points? Absolutely. But I think that they hit on some really important stuff and even hit on the biggest thing of why is this being allowed to happen? Because any person with any intelligence would look at what the United States is doing, a sovereign country, the government literally making executive decisions to allow people to just flood into the country. Why? Voting. And I think this is key because obviously a lot of conservatives would say this, but even the average person, we're seeing it here in Joe Rogan, even they realize that the Democrats are doing this for votes. So Democrats out there, leaders out there, right, who are part of the liberal movement, you're not tricking anybody, right? Nobody's fooled by this. Nobody thinks that you have like a heart that's 5 times the size of the average person and you're allowing these people in because you're philanthropists and you just want to help them so bad, right? There's enough people in the United States of America who need help that we don't need millions of more flooding in here. We already have homeless and people with mental health issues and children who need help here who are not getting it. So if your heart was so huge, you would solely just help those people out. And this is one of the reasons why the Democrat Party has had a strong hold on so many people, because that's been their platform. Now, I don't agree with the way that the Democrat Party does this, right? I don't think that their policy actually works. They've always been perceived as the party who is the sounding board towards we're going to help those in need. The people who are low income, no income, homeless, children, poverty, we're going to give them money. Inner city, that the Democrats are always seen as those individuals. And because their policies are terrible, it's never actually worked, right? The welfare state has actually negatively impacted probably most of the people over the years who have been on the welfare state. Not everybody. There have been people who have gotten off of it, people who have become wealthy and rich over the generations, right? But the majority of individuals who have been stuck in the welfare state are still stuck there because the policies are ineffective. But it doesn't really matter if it's effective or not because people perceive the Democrats as those who are going to help. But for whatever reason, the Democrats are now shifting their eyes away from those people to illegal people who are not actually citizens of this country, who are just coming from random countries around the world. They're lifting up border razor wire for them to flood into the country. And now all of the resources, the money is being given to them, being funneled away from inner cities, funneled away from our homeless, funneled away from our vets and our children, our schools, education, and funneled towards them. Why would they make such a crazy move? This is insane. You would almost borderline lock somebody up and put them into a mental institution for doing something so self-harming, because it seems like they're harming themselves. Why would they do this? Because they're looking at the bigger picture. And the bigger picture for the Democrat Party is establishing a massive voting bloc. The Democrats are fairly secure on the idea that they already have the inner city vote. We already have the poor vote. We already have most of the African American vote. But we need to get a bigger voting bloc. We really need to secure a position. Where can we get those voters from? Let's get it from the illegal immigrants. They might be overplaying their hand here, though, because a lot of people in the inner cities are starting to see this for what it is. Now, I don't think that they're necessarily understanding the reality of what the Democrat Party has done to them over the decades, which is generally harmed them. So I don't think that this is the greatest reason for them to understand how inept and corrupt the Democrat Party is, but it is at least a reason. And this is turning a lot of people away from the Democrat Party, at least right now. And so I think some of the upcoming elections are going to be tough for the Democrats as more people turn towards the conservatives. But you are starting to see, and these guys here are even commenting on the video clip, like the conservatives, the Republicans are starting to become the people who are like, well, wait a second, what about helping our own people out? Whereas Republicans in the past have been very much like, well, listen, they got to fend for themselves, right? This is at least how they're perceived again. But it is definitely more in line with that, where like they're just like, listen, you got to lift yourself up by your own bootstraps. We're not here to help you. And if we do help you, it's only going to be detrimental. See, I think that the conservative Republican side has gone too far with that, because at the end of the day, the government, the government it really does need to help out the people who need to help out, because there are people in this world who need help and they can't help themselves. There's children in this world. There's people who have lower IQs, lower levels of understanding, worse job situations. They're disabled. There's a whole bunch of situations. Elderly, they can't help themselves. And of course, our community at large should be helping, right? Traditionally speaking, the world has always been one in which you get involved in the community, a local church, local organizations, and you help each other out, right? The world has changed dramatically from what it used to be, and now the government is taking the heavy lifting in that. So we are where we are, right? Whether you like it or not, it is what it is. So at this point, if the government is truly going to help somebody out, like any good spotter, right, to somebody who's trying to lift a weight in their life, you need to come alongside the person, you need to support them, you need to give them encouragement, and you need to give them enough help that they need so that they can kind of get through the thing on their own, right? So where conservatives are perceived as not helping these individuals at all, Democrats have basically done all the heavy lifting for these individuals over the years, which has actually probably been worse for them because now they're weak, right? It's like somebody who's been going to the gym lifting weights and the spotter has been doing all the lifting for them. That's what the government has done. And it's left generations of people much weaker than they would have been. Right? Whereas the conservative agenda would have had these people just lifting the weights on their own, right? Now, in the long term, it probably would have ended up working out for them. But in the short term, it would have been like just heartless, right? So again, I'm making a simplified explanation of what the perception from the American people is. But this is beginning to change now because the Democrats have really moved in this new direction towards illegal individuals coming into this country for a voting block. And then we see this interesting back and forth here between these two guys, right? Joe Rogan, the other guy, where they're saying, well, what's going to be the ultimate outcome? Because the other guy is saying like, hey, listen, these people aren't going to vote Democrat. You think these people from these countries are down with a lot of the liberal agenda? And then Joe Rogan's like, well, no, they are going to vote Democrat because the Democrats let them in. And then this guy, I think rightfully says, well, in the short term, yes, right? But in the long term, their ideological values are going to supersede that initial help that they got, which I believe he is right with. But then Joe Rogan presses back and says, well, what about California? Because in the long term, as the illegals have been able to vote there, we haven't actually seen that. And how this all plays out, we're going to have to see. Where's America going to be heading in the future with what has been done to this country? I'd like to know your thoughts on this. Leave your comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. I'll catch you in the next video.